Kia ora, my name's Storm Harrison. I'm a corporal in the New Zealand Army. I come from Napier, Hawke's Bay, so Ngāti Kainunu, Ngāti Porou, and my mother's side's Ngāti Raukawa. On the Monday, before the floods hit Eastdale and Whirinaki, I just knocked off work, probably about 1300. Got home, everyone got put on call. No one knew that anything was going to eventuate because everyone thought Auckland will get hit and it'll disappear. 1 o'clock in the morning or 1:45, I had Staff Sergeant Forbes ring me. Bro, get to the Bayview Fire Station ASAP. You need to get down there, grab what gear you got. The banks are burst. I headed down to the fire station in Bayview and yeah, she was pretty chaotic down there. The power had gone out, so it was dark. They had lights going and Staff Sergeant Forbes turned up on the Unimog and he just said, got all our gear in there, bro. We're gonna bounce out there and start saving people. We told the fireys, we've got to go. There's people out there, you know, screaming for help because they could hear them from the roofs. Had two police officers jump in with me in the morgue and a fiery. We shot down to the Napier Tupel turnoff and you could see the river flowing pretty fast and hard, and I saw the house at the corner, just the tip of the roof from the headlights, and I had the high beam on of the truck. So we thought, okay, we'll enter the water here. As soon as we entered the water, the headlights went out. We couldn't see nothing, so I quickly backed out, and then we had a quick look at the gauge, the depth gauge of the river, and yeah, she was pretty deep. It was pretty deep. So we shot down to Eastdale Primary School. On the way there, we picked up one of the boys, Ricky Key. He had a chainsaw because we had trees down, and our man cut his way through in his bare feet, chopping through the trees to get us through. And Eastdale Primary School, the water was up to the school rugby field, and we were just blown away because you could hear it. It was loud, and in the distance, like as soon as you got up to the edge of the water, you could see big, huge tanks and looked like containers at night, just floating past. We could hear people out there yelling out for help, you know, so that's something you'll never forget in the dark. And then we were like, oh, bugger it, we'll head across. We had two big LED spotlights. So one police officer jumped on the roof, Staff Forbes jumped on the roof. I turned the lights off so we wouldn't do any damage to the electrics, not that it mattered at the time. Had the lights on facing into the water, and you could see the current was just going hard. And we were like, holy you know, like, this is bad. We drove into the water, and yeah, the good old Unimog got us so far, and then we just couldn't keep going because the truck would have disappeared too. So bear in mind, there's still people that were clinging to life, just yelling out for help, and you felt helpless because you were trying to do as much as you could. Unfortunately, we had to pull back and then just yell out to people in the dark, just hang on, just wait, we're here, we can hear you, we're here. And then, you know, felt like hours, we couldn't do nothing. The Surf Life Rescue boys turned up on their boats, and civilians turned up on jet boats, and they were racing around too, trying to save people. And I looked out in the distance and I could see that the light was coming up, and I could see the sign at the end of the road, the yellow sign with the arrows, black arrows. And I thought, yep, the morgue can get through there. So we just jumped straight into the morgue, hammered down through the silt, through that current, that rapid, and then got to the end and started rescuing people that were there. First house we come to was a lady and her two kids. It was a young boy and a girl, and they had been up there since midnight, and so they'd been sitting up there for a long time. Yeah, she just said, thanks for coming, you know, like she did say, I thought it was over, we were over, and she just had her two kids from 12 o'clock at night till nearly 10 o'clock the next day. It's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay. And they were actually the people we could hear over the wall. So you just imagine the river roaring, just like a freight train, but you could still hear people screaming at the same time, yelling for help. I think that's, you know, for her to have the courage to keep her kids calm was the big thing, because once I grabbed those two kids, all they wanted to do was go for a ride on the army truck. So I think their mind, at the time, they didn't realise how much danger they were in, you know, but yeah, and I think that sort of gave you a good feeling too, is like, yeah, that's me, you know, like, well, keep pumping forward, you know, like I can't get tired, even though I was knackered, just next house, so yeah. Yeah, by the time I got to the end of the Taupo turnoff, friends like my friend's mum and dad needed help, so we dismounted the Unimog and ran up thinking like sand, looked like sand, you know, normal hard sand, but it was actually up to the ankles, so we were like sludging through, and then got to near the end of their driveway, and for me and myself, I thought, oh yep, I'll just run through this area, and man, I sunk to my waist, and I was trying to like lift myself out. I was just getting sucked in. I had a life jacket on and had my helmet with me just in case we had to enter some buildings, but I couldn't even move. That's how thick the silt was, and the mud was just pulling you down, right down till I felt my knee ready to pop. The only way I could get out was just lay flat and then just like lay on my stomach and then just sort of like crawl like a ant or something just to get to them. And like I was blowing, I was tired, I was knackered. And then when I got to the lady, she goes to me, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Nah, we're not going that way." You know, like it was that hard out. And so we took a breath and managed to find another route. So you managed to get them out, saved her rabbits and other personal items. And then after that, that's when the hard task started. The rest of the 5-7 boys started to turn up. So they jumped in the morgue and then took the people we saved away. And it was me, Private Wright, and 2 firefighters. And then yeah, we started clearing houses. So from then on, that's when it was tough, because you didn't know what you were going to find. We just didn't know if we were going to find people or children or anything like that. So that was probably the worst part, was the unknown, what was behind the door. You know, the water came down pretty quick, but then you could see the aftermath, what it had done. A lot of it was silt. Like I'd describe it as like a tidal wave had come through, or tsunami, yeah, it just wiped everything out. And I had a police radio and a fire radio, and they just said to me, "Can you clear 101? And I was like, "We can't, mate, there's nothing there." The house had absolutely been destroyed. All that was left was the floor, down about 100 meters was the roof. In the tree line, the avocado trees, what were left was the dishwasher, was sitting up high in the trees. So that gave you an insight of how powerful the water was. The silt itself is like, wow, where did it come from? You know, like it was so high. So one of the houses was, you could just walk from the ground onto the roof. That's how high the silt was. And we were lucky we had a breaching kit, so we grabbed the bars out and started smashing through the roof of the house just to peel it open, to yell out if anyone was there. But if there were people there, you wouldn't know because the silt was that high. So you just had to do what you could with what resources you had and just go to the next house, because the main priority then was searching for people. And it was a long day, long day doing that. But you know, this is in your town, this is in your home, these are people you know. So that kept us motivated, just searching for life. It's not just me, there was heaps of us doing what anyone would do to help others. You know, you don't really think about yourself at the time. You know, you just think about they need help. You know, we've got to get in there and get the job done. And I think that's just the soldier's mindset, I suppose. You know, or not just the soldier's mindset. Anyone that's there to help. You know, like I didn't really think about my own safety at first, and even later. You know, I'd probably do the same again, just to jump in there and help anyone. You know, like you heard of, I think later that day, there was a little girl that went missing, and you know, you think of your own tamariki. So, it was a long, hard day that day, but I think when we heard about that little girl, that was hard, because as a father, you know, you just want to die yourself. Yeah, but for us, when you think of that, you know, that makes me go, I'd do it again to save as many people as I could, you know, and obviously we couldn't. Not everyone was saved, you know, there was a few people that passed, but you know, I'm happy that I was there that day and hopefully made a difference to save people. That's all.